Welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I am your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your other host, Sir Miguel Prado. We are pumped to be back here with you. We had to work pretty hard to make this happen. The internet gods are not with us right now, but we fought them until hell froze over, and then we fought them on the ice, and we are back, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you. Welcome back. You are correct, sir. We took the battle to the internet gods that were trying to keep us down. Long fought battle, but happy to report that we did. We did come out on top here. Got some bandwidth finally, both figuratively and technically, and able to get back in the saddle here. And it's a postseason special, baby.
Let's go.
We are the People's Podcast. Not a NASCAR podcast, although I would like to go to a NASCAR race that's rolling into LA here early next month. So maybe we'll sneak some of that into the future of some of the exciting things that are coming up on the horizon. But nothing more exciting than NFL playoffs, right? And I think you and I are excited about some maybe off-season jockeying here as well.
Yeah, I was just about to challenge you on that. Nothing more exciting than the NFL playoffs, because I think at least for Bears fans, and I'm even kind of poking my head over the fence now that our season is over with the Packers on that number one pick. What on earth are the Bears going to do with that? Before
I get some thank you cards out, because I have one addressed to Lovey Smith. Why don't we let the people know who is sponsoring our episode tonight?
Absolutely. No, Lovey Smith, man, he had the natural remedies that Miguel and all the Bears fans were looking for. He made y'all feel better today and maybe a lot more days ahead.
For a while.
He had those natural remedies on deck. And so does Life Leaf Remedies. We've got natural remedies for y'all because we are passionate about helping you feel better today. We're making effective natural remedies for things like sleep, immune support, and other areas that you might be seeking relief. So check us out at lifeleafremedies.com to learn more about our natural remedies that we have to offer and the things that we're coming up with here in the near future. And we're here to help you guys take better care of yourselves and your family with natural things. So if you like any of our products, subscribe to them. You will get free shipping. You'll get 10% off. And even if you want to game the system and cancel right away, you are certainly welcome to do so. We are that confident you're coming back because you're going to enjoy those products. They're going to help you feel better. They're going to lift up that life you're living. And most importantly, help y'all feel better today. So if y'all OGs out there want to help Miguel and I feel better today, there is a natural remedy that you have at your disposal. Sir, could you help him with that?
Yeah, calling all OGs here. If you do enjoy us, don't forget to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate. And I got one more request, Miles. At your next tailgate here, I want you to talk about Bum Theory on Instagram, who is one of the most talented graphic designers and flat out artist, one of the kindest souls I've ever met. You can see his work is all over his fingertips and fingerprints, and creative leadership is present in everything that we do here. You can see some of the Life Leaf work, some of the OG podcast work, and also working on merch. I mean, I'm so excited, Miles. I just want to say this is episode 23 for all the loyal listeners at home, on the go, in traffic, however you consume your podcast. Just want to say officially, this is probably the most committed to a passion project that I've ever been. Episode 23 here.
Right on.
So I'm so excited about a lot that's going on with this project. And tonight, most grateful for Bum Theory. That's BUMTHEARY on Instagram. Check him out. Check out some of his work, some of his projects that he has in the mix. And yeah, and so we were talking about some thank you notes. So maybe might send a thank you note out to Lovey Smith for that Lovey Mills miracle in Indianapolis, or I'm sorry, yeah, in Indianapolis, with the Hail Mary, and then the going for two, and then getting fired. Never like to see that, but I think Lovey definitely knew what was at stake, what was already decided before kickoff, and that was that he was on the chopping block and on his way out of town in Houston. And so his parting gift to that ownership team and to Chicago Bear fans everywhere is the number one draft pick overall belonging to Ryan Poles and the Chicago Bears.
So let the Civil War begin.
Yeah. Well, the Civil War is in the NFC South, sir. That's where the Civil War is at.
No.
Yeah,
no. I'm talking about the Civil War between Bears fans and Bears fans right now.
Here we go.
Trade Fields! No, you're crazy! Yeah. Now, obviously, we on this podcast have made ourselves pretty clear in which side of that we sit. And I'm not even a Bears fan, but now I'm by this podcast, I get to participate here.
Which is
so.
It's vicariously, I get to live through the lens of a Packers fan with you. You get to live vicariously through being dead inside as a Bears fan with me. And what gets exciting is this time of year, which we've said on this podcast, the NFL owns, unless you've been living under a rock, the NFL owns the entire calendar, whether it's the NFL draft, the offseason, the postseason, the Pro Bowl that's revamped. They do a very good job of making a soap opera out of every possible angle. On top of that, add fans, right? We are a fan podcast. So the trade possibilities, the trade scenarios, from trading Justin Fields to trading the draft capital to trading for players right now, are more content than you and I can get through in 100 of these episodes, which is just why it's so exciting to be a NFL fan. Maybe not for everybody that's outside of that number one spot, but for the Bears fans and the Bears organization, I mean, so much to get through here. So much has happened since that Lovey Mills miracle that happened for Houston to get that upset win against the Indianapolis Colts and solidify that number 2 draft pick in the upcoming draft. And so, Miles, I'll throw something out there. I mean, if we're going to talk about trade scenarios, we have to start at the potential to trade twice within the top 5 because of that civil war in the NFC South that you mentioned. Both are quarterback needy teams in Houston and in Indianapolis, who is 2 and 4 respectively. There is in some parallel universe a scenario where the Bears are trading to number 2 and then back to number 4. And I think that's what's most exciting right now. If again, you take the cornerstone of our podcast that is, if you're tuning in for the first time, we are a pro Justin Fields podcast. I mean, let's just go ahead and start there. It just gets really exciting when you think about all of the building that needs to take place, and having some of the resources to really make a splash.
Yeah, well, and so, all right, this is where you get a little bit of the less informed perspective from me. I hadn't really been exposed to the trade fuel that you just revealed there. So not just the idea of, you got to trade out of the number 1 spot, which I think that's easy to agree on. Assuming you're pro Justin Fields. Again, if you're anti Justin Fields, and you're going to have to not only win the tug of war that Justin Fields is not good enough, but you're also going to have to win the tug of war over these draft assets you could be stacking up here. So I don't really see a great argument anywhere from any angle. And, if y'all are listening to this, light up the comment section for us, please. I don't see any angle where it makes more sense to draft a kid, even if he is, Bryce Young looks great, and Stroud looks great. We'll get into some scouting and stuff. We'll do some of that. People's podcast is going nowhere, by the way, just because the season's over. Like Miguel said, we got tons of content to go over. So yeah, keep tuning in. But just from this perspective, I don't think that there's a draft prospect that has come out, including go back to Andrew Luck. You call me crazy, Pat Mahomes, all these guys, but the thing is, and you have to look at them from a prospect perspective. Pat Mahomes didn't go number 1 overall for a reason. He wasn't assumed to be what he is. Again, there were questions around Josh Allen. There were questions around Lamar Jackson. So you can't show me a draft prospect over the last 10, 15 years that makes more sense as your starting quarterback next year than a Justin Fields, who again, he's not only been in the league now for 2 seasons, but you've got 1 full season of evaluation under the system that you believe you want to run with. That time, the experience, all of that is invaluable. So, looking at all of that, the prospect at number 1 overall to say, let's get rid of Justin Fields and take this kid instead would have to be out of this world, man. And again, the people who want to, go against Justin Fields, say trade him and take take Bryce Young. You're gonna have to win the tug of war, and you could probably get a lot of draft capital for Fields, but probably not as much as you're gonna get in that scenario that you just described. But you're also gonna have to win the tug of war that he's not a good player. And I'm sorry, guys, he's not a good passer. Pound sand. He had nobody to throw to, and that's coming from a Packer fan. We covered that thoroughly this year. So, go back, check out some of the other episodes if you want to get into our real breakdown of the support of Justin Fields, because we've gone in through it really thoroughly. But I'm excited to see what comes up, because you're not just looking at those 2 teams in the AFC South. There's other teams who need quarterbacks, and they're willing to come in and pay a king's ransom. So I'm this is going to be fun to watch. I got my popcorn.
Yeah, get your popcorn, get some movie butter, movie theater butter for that popcorn, because every development is going to matter up until April when the draft takes place. The most recent development, CJ Stroud declaring for the NFL draft, right? So he analyzed all of his options. He put all his cards on the table. He very publicly said, I'm going to make my declaration at the deadline. When the deadline came, he made the declaration that he was entering the NFL draft. A lot of speculation on what his draft stock would look like in 2024, right? And again, NIL changes the landscape of players feeling the financial incentive or financial pressure to make that life-changing decision if they have an ability to crack the first round of the NFL draft, right? That is life-changing money for a lot of players, a lot of people. And so with that declaration being made, there are different angles now to look at that number 1 draft pick, right? Because if it was only Bryce Young, right, then that changes the dynamic of pitting in Indianapolis and a Houston, right? Because keep in mind, Houston would have to, if they want to make sure that a division rival doesn't get their guy, they would need to trade from 2 to 1. Which, if you think about that, it makes a lot of sense of why the Houston front office was probably not very happy with Lovie Smith after that victory, right? A lot at stake. With that being said, you made a point of can the Bears trade Justin Fields? I think that is what adds to the mystique of the resources that the Bears have, right? Because they can go and pivot in many directions and build a franchise. To your point of the needy teams that can potentially need one of those, 1 or 2 top quarterbacks in this draft. I think why the narrative has really dialed into a Houston and an Indianapolis is because of the draft capital and player capital that would be needed to move anywhere further from the top 5 to number 1, right? Because you think about the value of that number 1 draft pick. But I saw a scenario, Miles, that, included trading Justin Fields to the Baltimore Ravens for Lamar Jackson, and throwing some draft capital in there. And it just adds to all of the options that Ryan Poles has at stake. And I think that is what's exciting. And Ryan Poles has a new boss now also. Right. So historically, it's been Ted Phillips. And if you go farther in Bears history, since George Halas, it has been a lineage of Bears family to George Halas, from the Halas family, George Halas Jr., to the McCaskies, to Ted Phillips, who has made a career at Halas Hall. So has been a part of, you can quote unquote say, the Bears family, right? That has been very tight since the creation of the football team. Now you have Kevin Warren, who is a Big Ten commissioner, coming in with over 31 years of NFL experience, of football experience, of collegiate NCAA experience, just a true resume of being a thought leader, a leader of men, a leader of football as an institution in the Big Ten. And you think about the Big Ten, and they're constantly contending for BCS championships, right? When you think of the Michigans of the world, of the Ohio States of the world. So this is definitely not just some hey, let's let this moment pass us in history. This is a significant moment for the organization. You have Kevin Warren in place, who Ryan Poles rolls up to. You have Ian Cunningham, who has committed to another year with the Chicago Bears. So there is just a lot of good foundational pieces that are falling into place, Miles, that adds an element to the excitement of where this organization's headed. And I'm very excited about that.
Okay. And this is something I wanted to get into. And this is the lesser informed fan from the other side of the fence here, right? But when I saw Kevin Warren was hired, I immediately had an impulse to mock the hire on Twitter for one specific reason. And it's because he was a longtime Vikings exec. Yeah. And good friend of the show, guest on, spoiler alert, guest on episode 21 that has not been published yet, Austin. He came to the Bears' defense very quickly and tried to call me out for just like getting after you guys no matter what. And I love that the Vikings made a very timely first-round playoff exit pretty quickly after that, because his defense was that the Vikings had a good season and the Packers didn't. But I think the Vikings did exactly what we all expected them to do. But nonetheless, I wanted to find out, and shout out to Austin. Love you, brother. Love button heads with you on Twitter. Is this something that should be defended? Because you sound like you're ready to defend this move, man. You love the Kevin Warren move. Are you pointing more to his experience in the Big Ten, and does his time with Minnesota concern you?
Couple things. Shout out Austin, and a congratulations on a dominant Dak Prescott performance in the playoffs. Congrats on that. What was it? The first road win since, I think, what was it? 90?
Yeah, like 93, I think.
Something like that.
92, 93.
Again, talking about not letting history pass us, that's significant.
Yeah.
So credit where credit is
due. Touche, Cowboys.
Credit where credit is due. I will say this about Kevin Warren is a point that you and I, not to get too philosophical here, but you and I tend to agree on the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? Ted Phillips, 30 years with the organization, nothing to show for it, right? And I mean, that's not
Yeah.
something that you want to hang your hat on as a fan or anything, where you look back on those 30 years and say, hey man, we were being led to the promised land, and we put out some teams that had great defenses, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's been the same story. We had a businessman, a man with a background and a tenure that was made in the financial industry, right? As an accountant and as a business minded leader in that CEO role. Not necessarily really feeling the need or pressure to make the best football decisions for the team, right? Or expansion for the team. So also deviating from the Bears' history is that point that I made of this. Kevin Warren is the first true hire based off of a resume and not just, who he knew, right? Or shaking some hands or just being connected to the McCaskey family. Yes, he did have a time with the Vikings. From my understanding, it was in the capacity that we are bringing him into here in Chicago, as well as in the Big Ten, right? And that is what he has said, quote unquote, the number one priority of the Chicago Bears is the stadium development. And that's a quote from him, right? From his introductory press conference. So I think that the Bears understood, look, we haven't been successful in the last 3 decades. We don't have much to show for it. We're starting to, and I think Ryan Pace and Matt Eberflus are also an indication of this, right? Is understanding that you can't keep doing the same things. You can't keep putting the same product out there and expecting a different result, right? So this is more of a long build, in my opinion, where the Bears are saying, hey, let's get this state-of-the-art stadium right. Let's get this whole village similar to AT&T Stadium there in Texas, in Arlington. The Bears are looking for that type of feel in Arlington Heights in Illinois, where they can build around the stadium, have a night district of bars, restaurants, entertainment, where they can continue to build out and actually own the property and own the land, which revenue, right? Profitability,
Yep.
where there's not any scenario under the sun, Miles, where the Bears brass has the accessibility to that profitability or revenue in Soldiers Field, because it's owned by the city and they're paying rent to the
It's
city, the
landlocked.
Chicago Park District, right? So I think with him
Yeah.
coming out and saying that's why I was hired, it's just like a light bulb goes off as a fan, where you're like, this team has a direction. They know what, and he's not coming in here, to, make sure that the books are squared away at the end of the day, like Ted Phillips was, where it was just money centric, right? This is also a football move, right? Keep in mind the 31 years, as I said, like that thought leader in the football complex, including the NFL, including the Big Ten. So, I mean, yeah, could he have been associated to any other team and it'd be better? Yes, it is the Vikings, but I would say I'm looking at the big picture, and I'm thinking a stadium and a Super Bowl can be, hosted at that stadium, and just overall excitement for the art of the possible with Kevin Warren, and I think his Vikings tenure is something that I wouldn't shy away from. I think that just adds to, again, that resume of who he is as a football guy, which the Bears haven't had in Ted Phillips.
That's fair. And I'll, without doing a whole lot of research about what his role with the Big Ten was, I mean, obviously as commissioner, I know that, but I mean, what he actually was responsible for. I'll say this as a Badger fan, the Big Ten has been in a lot better shape than the other conferences. We've been attracting teams instead of losing teams. He's through the turmoil that the Big 12's been going through. I mean, really, the Big Ten has been right up there with the SEC in a lot of ways. Obviously, football, the SEC is pretty dominant. But yeah, so hats off to him for the work he did as the commissioner of the Big Ten. I'm sure there's some criticism, that we could throw in there if we needed to. But again, credit to the organization. You guys seem to be really making meaningful change. And I remember having conversations with my other Bears fans friends in the past about, the new coach and, all right, is this the one? You and I had that conversation about Matt Nagy. And every single time with a different coach, it kind of felt like the same thing. It's like, Lovey, he did pretty well. But as you're saying, you had some good defenses, but you never felt like you were changing the direction of the organization. One question I have, and I don't know, I haven't looked into any of the plans. How high is having an open stadium on the priority list?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be almost a carbon copy of the U.S. Bank Stadium in the Twin Cities in Minnesota that Kevin Warren was instrumental in that Vikings development plan. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be a either retractable or closed stadium because of the then ability to host Final Four matchups, to host March Madness games, to host Super Bowls, to host all of these big ticket events. But to stay on that Kevin Warren accomplishment list. So with the Vikings, again, he was part of the leadership that developed US Bank Stadium, some state-of-the-art practice facilities, which keep in mind the Bears already have some of the most state-of-the-art practice facilities with the Walter Payton Center at Hallis Hall. In the Big Ten, you talked about what it takes to compete with the SEC and the expansion of that conference. So, we talked about it, and USC, they're Big Ten. They're a Big Ten school now. UCLA, he was part of negotiating that deal.
Wait, USC is going to the Big Ten? I didn't realize. I thought it was just UCLA.
No, USC, UCLA. So sidebar, Miles. That deal,
hell yeah,
that deal only happens with USC and UCLA saying that they are a 2-for-1. They were only going to leave the Pac-12 if
good for
they
them.
Came together. And so, they are, LA history, LA powerhouse schools, both of them obviously huge rivals. So that dynamic to the Big Ten to go out and expand out West, right in Pac-12 country and taking two of the premier, taking two of the premier competitors out of that football conference. Kevin Warren negotiated that deal. So
hey, hats off
to him, man. And so,
that's incredible.
When again, you start putting context together, guy comes up to a podium on his introductory press conference and says, hey, my number one goal moving forward, the number one goal of this franchise is that stadium development. It's just like, and do you ask me what's the number one goal of this franchise? I'm going to answer that as a fan perspective is the number one goal for this franchise is to build a winner, a contender around Justin Fields, right? But when you start separating those layers within Hallis Hall, you understand that's Ryan Poles' priority, right? And so now he can shed that block of being a soundboard for the McCaskey family, of being a soundboard for, the Bears brass in this stadium development, and they can say, hey, put the blinders on and focus on football and focus on building this team. So that's why I think this is a good move. Obviously we're going to see Ryan Poles and that focus on football here immediately because Luke Getsy is going to be the head coach of the Senior Bowl, I believe. Which again, man, it's just like so much has happened since our last episode that and it just seems like, and I'm going to say this, and I think Bears fans that are tuning in are going to agree, the Bears aren't historically an organization that catches breaks, ever. They're out there. They're out there. They know who they are. The organizations that catch some breaks. The Bears haven't historically been that. It's starting to feel like, especially with that Lovey Mills miracle. It's like, dude, we're getting some breaks here because the Bears. I mean, we're slotted in for that number 2 pick overall. It took a little bit of magic. That type of magic is what's been
Yeah.
missing, and it's just again, it's been a heck of a ride since that Hail Mary and that play 2-point conversion.
Yeah, man. And there's a lot coming. Like we like I said, we got a lot to cover this offseason, including hard segue here. Aaron Rodgers watch 3.0.
Oh, jeez.
This is the part, and I don't even know. I don't know if I'll get enough time to edit in the clip of last July. I think maybe it was. I think it was July when the reporter asks Rodgers at his locker. So, do you think you'll finish your career with the Packers? Oh, definitely.
It's absolute certainty.
How'd that go? Good Lord, that fell apart. So yeah, here we are. Right at the starting line of the offseason here for the Packers, he hits McAfee show and just like kicks the lights the fireworks, kicks just like, hey guys, here we go, party again. You thought we were done with this crap? Nope. Here you go. So yeah, I mean it's deja vu all over again. You got Goot going up to the podium saying, "Yeah, we want everybody back." Like, oh god. So again, if you're new to this podcast, we already covered that we're a very pro Justin Fields podcast. I'm also very pro trade Aaron Rodgers at this point.
That's why the people tune in.
I don't know if Miguel.
We're the people's podcast.
I don't know how pro that that Miguel feels that way. I think you might like to have Aaron Rodgers back for one more year just to get that chance to beat him again. But, I'm ready to move on from him. I'm done with this. We did this with Favre, and, Rodgers said that he wasn't going to go out this way, and here we are. So this is just – it's just too much at this point.
He's proven now that he has to, in some capacity, enjoy some of this attention.
Oh, he does. Oh my God, the way he came out on McAfee and just totally spilled it out, and just like without hesitation, with zero hesitation. He didn't even think twice about it. Didn't wait. Didn't drag it out. No, man, he immediately wanted that attention. So here we go. We got it. And to be clear, again, for any new listeners out there, I have historically been an Aaron Rodgers apologist to a fault until this season. This season is what changed it all. And I'll point to something that he kind of convicted himself on or indicted himself on when he talked about, in the McAfee interview. We're not going to get into the MVP stuff. That's BS. That's stuff that he was clearly talking about his ability. People want to jump on him for something. You can jump on him for that. That's dumb. He also said that it's not worth coming back if you can't win it all. So put that aside. We're not going to waste our time on this clickbaity BS that the national media does. The thing I wanted to zoom in on is him saying that, the right situation for him to come back, he's got to have guys like Mercedes Lewis and Randall Cobb and Robert Tonyan. Quote, guys you can win with.
He's got your organization held hostage, Miles.
What did we just live? What season did we just watch? We just watched a season full of Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan, Bakhtiari, fantastic player on that list and absolutely is a winning player. And, the one who thinks he can still win an MVP, they all looked done. I won't get into tell you how I really feel. But the problem is he's got this illusion that he is still the same version of himself. And one thing that I want to cut off right at the beginning is I'm sure somebody's yelling it right now. Well, he had a broken thumb. He was injured. Whatever. He had rookie receivers too. Stop. The whole point of him mentioning those guys, Mercedes Lewis, Randall Cobb, Robert Tonyan, David Bakhtiari, is so that you can have the other younger folks and be able to work with them. If he's what he's saying with this statement is, if I'm surrounded by a bunch of young guys that I have to coach by myself, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in having some vets around me that can help me, right? The problem I have with that is the you can win with part of the statement. You didn't. You didn't win with him. You didn't play at an MVP level. I don't care about the thumb. He made terrible decisions. He made, like, the thumb was not not a factor, in my opinion, of his bad play. While he had a broken thumb, he made some pretty brilliant throws about 50% of the time. The other 50% were terrible. They were embarrassing. They were underthrown, overthrown, wrong guy. And certainly we went over one episode where the receivers were at fault, but there were so many examples where it was his decision making. So I have, just for those following along, the last two Aaron Rodgers watches, 1.0 and 2.0, I was pro Rodgers. I was 100% of the time he is coming back. He will be back. It's the best for him. It's the best for the team, best for everybody. There was just no other path, and that's what happened. In this case, I could not be like a harder 180-degree change. He needs to go. You were spot on, Miguel, when you said he is holding this organization hostage. He is absolutely doing that. He loves it. He loves that he's the guy. He made that very clear two off seasons ago when he demanded that Goot, do these things for him, when he basically made the trade for Randall Cobb himself. He loves being the guy, and he's gotten everything he wanted since that time. And now, and I called this out earlier in the season, we've run out of that, right? It's not working anymore. GM Rodgers is broken. Play caller, offensive coordinator Rodgers is not working anymore. And that's the guy that needs to go. That's the guy that's holding this team hostage. That's not the guy that won the MVP. The back-to-back MVPs was the guy who was running LaFleur's offense and playing within the system that he was in. We all of a sudden got this guy that, because he lost Devontae Adams, he can't work with these rookie receivers. Outright refused to work with them in the offseason, and then got mad why they weren't keeping up with him while they were in season. Like, I think we already covered that too. We don't need to beat a horse too many times. But I mean, a lot of people make the comparisons like, if that's Peyton Manning, there's no way, as soon as they draft those guys, there's no way he's missing a day with them. He's got those guys on his dime out wherever he's training with him every day. They're studying, they're training, and by the time they get to training camp, they're going to be buddies, they're going to be well studied, they're going to know exactly what's going on and be on the same page. Aaron Rodgers says, no, I'm going to go do whatever I do in the offseason. Fair enough. Take your time, dude. That's cool. But you have a full offseason there where you ignored your guys and then came back and got mad that they didn't know your hand signals. Like, what?
Yeah.
Come on, man. That's holding an organization hostage. Those are the things that are holding this organization hostage. And to all the people out there who are all in their feels and their nostalgia about the quarterback who's been the Packers quarterback for, almost 2 decades now, you have to decide whether you like Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback of the team you root for, or if you want the team you root for to win games. Right. Like you are at that Y in the road. We hit that this year where you can point to games that Jordan Love would have won that Aaron Rodgers lost simply by playing within the system. And that that's on film. Yeah. Like that's objective. There's no in your feels about it. This is a business. You have to win games. So here we go, fan. OGs out there, buckle up. We got Aaron Rodgers 3.0, and we might make some T-shirts for it.
Buckle up, and I'll say this. I feel like you are unplugging a large demographic of Packer fans out of the matrix and unplugging them.
I hope so.
Let me say this. A couple quick wrinkles is holding the organization hostage. You do that at the baseline to that, without boiling the ocean, is when you allow a player to make personnel decisions for your NFL franchise. There's three exceptions to that rule that came to mind, maybe a fourth just listening to you. So I'll start there. Peyton Manning. When you have a Peyton Manning, right, when you know that your team that you are assembling, be it a Denver Bronco team, right, in 2013, or an Indianapolis Colts team of 2006 and after that, right, at that point you say, hey, okay, let's put a team out there, and then you check in with your franchise guy, i.e., Peyton Manning, and you get his input on some of these decisions. The other three that to me are solidified guys, right? Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady. That is the list, Miles. If you're not on that list, and the hardware that that list is responsible for, as far as MVP trophies, world championships, whether they're NBA or NFL championships, you got one of them throwing a freaking Lombardi trophy off a boat, right? I mean, unless you're one of those guys where the hardware means absolutely nothing at that point because you have so much of it, right? Then you check in with those guys. You say, you pick up the phone, you say, "Hey, MJ, what do you think about Horace Grant and maybe sending him off to Orlando? Or hey, what do you think about Dennis Rodman and bringing him in from San Antonio? Or or Kobe Bryant, right? Like, hey, Kobe, who do you want? You want Paul Gasol? All right, I'm gonna go get Paul Gasol." Unfortunately, right? And this is from a podcast where we walk the line of just saying, hey, we're going to be just out front, as straightforward, call a spade as possible. Aaron Rodgers is not that guy. You cannot let him be that guy that this 2023 offseason is telling you what to do, who to sign, where he wants to get traded. Because at some point, like you said, you're either rooting for Aaron Rodgers and the Aaron Rodgers spectacle that comes with it, right? Of, coming out with sound bites of, hey, my guys don't know my hand signals. Then it comes out that, oh yeah, Aaron will, expect you to know a hand signal from, 3 seasons ago, right? And understand how to adjust your route based off of a hand signal that isn't part of our playbook. You can't play this team sport like that, right? You can't, like, at some point, self-awareness has to come knocking on the door like an opportunity and say, hey man, like we need a team guy here for this core group that we have. It's unplugging from the matrix and envisioning a world without, number 12, but for the betterment of the group of the Green Bay Packers. And I'm a Bears fan. I mean, the colors don't lie, right? I'm a Bears fan. For the betterment of the Green Bay Packers, it's almost like what Pete Carroll did with Russell Westbrook. Like, at some point, it's just the boy who cried wolf, right? It's like, hey, Russ, have a seat. We're going to have a quick meeting. I'm going to send you off to Denver, and I wish you the absolute best, right? And it's just, and hey, shake hands, and you're off, right? And we all know how that story turned out, right? I mean, ask Nathaniel Hackett how that turned out. But
Pete Carroll looks pretty smart. Of
course, man. And so here, to the point earlier of like, hey, man, right now, and this is what's so cool and special about this time, seeing those, albeit outlandish left field, that would never happen scenario, i.e. the Lamar Jackson for Justin Fields trade and some draft capital. I mean, the sky's the limit with, if you take that hand-holding, doing only what Aaron Rodgers wants you to do, the no trade clause, etc., is like, dude, ship him off to New York, right? Get a trade package with the Jets where you're getting a king's ransom back, just like the Seattle Seahawks did, while you can.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you can't do, Miles, is let, again, this player, albeit we'll give him credit where credit's due, back-to-back MVP, albeit probably not going to repeat here for a third year in a row. Or I should say just that third MVP.
Certainly
right?
not.
It's at some point you have to say, okay, what can I get back as an organization? And you have a decision to make with who is obviously behind him on the depth chart, which is obviously been discussed from top to bottom on this show, is Jordan Love, right? And I think Jordan Love is at the point where he's not going to wait for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision. I think the young man has earned the ability to say, hey, guys, I would like the ability to go to be a starter in this league. because he hasn't done anything to show that he shouldn't be a starter in this league, especially when you're playing behind someone like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's a lot at stake. What are some of the, I'm going to tee you up. What are some of the scenarios that you like, some of the ones that you would want to happen with Aaron Rodgers? Obviously, I think you're on the trade side of that spectrum.
Yeah, and I think the big question going into the offseason was, will he retire or would he be traded? Um, a lot of people think that if a trade comes along that he'd just say, "No, I'll retire." I don't think that'll happen. And I think he alluded to it on McAfee. He said, "I don't have a no trade clause, but I don't see them trading me somewhere I don't want to go." And I think he's right, and to be fair, Goot seems to try to do right by guys. He did right by Devontae last offseason. Unfortunately, see, these players don't always know what's best, guys. That's why the GMs are the GMs and the players are the players. But ultimately, Goot tried to do right by the player in that situation. I think he did the best he could there, and I think he would do the same thing for Aaron Rodgers. So for me, it all comes down to get as much as you can. I don't care where it is. You trade him to Minnesota. I don't give a shit. Don't care. With Favre, I was a little bit more emotionally invested. I did not want to see Favre in the division, and seeing him go to Minnesota was like, that was a part of my childhood self dying. Yeah, I didn't, but I did get the last laugh because for my 21st birthday, I went with, shout out to Brett Unger, my boy from UW Oshkosh. We went to the Packers game against Brett Favre. It was his last game in Lambeau, and that was when the Vikings had gotten Randy Moss. So it was Favre and Randy Moss on the Lambeau field in purple, and the Packers won. That was the most memorable game I will ever have at Lambeau Field. It was amazing. It was like collectively Green Bay was allowed to have closure and move on. At the end of that game, and I've been to a lot of Packer games, at the end of that game, nobody left. Everybody stayed in the stadium, and it was just like partying. They were, I mean, obviously not for like a long time, but it was, I took a video of it because it was noticeable. It was like the players are off the field, the media's off the field, and this stadium was full. It was so cool. And it was kind of a last second win, and that was, that was the season the Packers won the Super Bowl, actually. So that was even more special. As part of that special ride, Clay Matthews at his peak, and just a really, really neat experience. So, that was one that I think, some people might go through that with Aaron Rodgers. I don't care. I don't care where he goes. I doubt he goes to the Bears. I don't think that that's in play at this point. I don't think that the Lions are in play. Could the Vikings be in play? The scenario, I don't think Rodgers would be okay with going there just for his own personal reasons. But, is there a place I just wouldn't want to see him go? I don't think so. I really don't. Maybe San Francisco. I really hate that.
You got Brock Purdy, bro.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen at this point. I think that was maybe a possibility before.
Let's walk through some of the scenarios here. So, as of this podcast being recorded, the Vikings have said that Kirk Cousins is coming back for 2023. So I think the A-Rod to Minnesota.
Cool.
Exactly. Oh, geez. Just, I mean, what was it? 4th and 8, and you throw a 3-yard check down.
Little Kirko, though. Hey.
Oh man. But beyond that, I digress. Okay, so Kirk he's slotted as a starter for Minnesota. I think Detroit's going to roll Jared Goff out there again. To your point, and I think with Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus in press conferences since the end of the season, have flat out said, I think it was Ryan Poles that said Justin Fields is the guy, and that it would take just someone absolutely blowing him away. And like you said, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud coming out as the unanimous 1 and 2. You could throw Will Levi in there for maybe a third option, but it's like that Family Guy meme that's making its rounds, and it's like, you want the boat or the box, right? Like which one do you want? You got
Yeah.
Justin Fields, he's the boat, right? You got potentially that franchise guy, or you could have this box where you don't know what you'd get in the NFL with Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, right? Like you
Yeah.
can already make the assumption that you're going to have a guy that would need to continue to physically grow. I mean, we talked about it on this podcast. Justin Fields is a physical specimen. It
Yeah.
just his height and weight, and then you have someone like C.J. Stroud that significantly weighs less and is also 5'10", 5'11", something like that. So you ask yourself, do you want the boat or the box? And I think in this case, like you said, like, hey, the Bears can build around Justin, so I think that also eliminates a trade partner for Green Bay. I think the
Yeah.
quarterback carousel that might be worth getting in here down the home stretch. And again, lots to talk about all offseason, so continue to tune into the OG Rivals podcast. But for the sake of time here, starting to see some of those moving parts, right? Like Tyler Huntley playing the playoff game because Lamar Jackson, who notoriously, didn't suit up for that game with an injury and an illness, not traveling to the playoff game to be with his team. Lamar Jackson's an open question mark. Where's he going to play? Derek
Hmm.
Carr, right? I mean, he got benched. And Devontae comes out and says, I came here because of Derek Carr. And so that
Yep.
changes the dynamic in Las Vegas. You mentioned San Francisco. They have Trey Lance, who they invested heavily in draft capital to draft Trey Lance and traded to draft Trey Lance. And then you have Mr. Irrelevant that rips off what 13 straight wins or something incredible, and you just have the next Tom Brady fall into your lap. Guys winning playoff games in his rookie
Wild.
season. To me, Miles, at that point, I'm not even answering the phone if Green Bay's calling about an Aaron Rodgers deal. I mean, I got Trey Lance and
No.
Brock that I could, potentially build around. So, who are feasible trade partners, Miles, outside of the Jets? And we all know that Zach Wilson has now infamously or famously, you pick your poison here, come out and said that whatever veteran quarterback comes into camp, he's going to make their life a living hell. So, so unless
Oh
Aaron
man.
Rodgers is prepared for life as a living hell, which objective here, some would say that life living with a witch girlfriend could be a living hell. Life estranged from your
Might
family
be.
could be a living hell. I mean, I don't know if Zach Wilson not talking to him during training camp would bother Aaron Rodgers at all.
Oh man. No, I think that maybe karma actually takes Aaron Rodgers to New York just because of that. Because I think that might be the one player that Mr. Wilson can't actually make his life a living hell, and certainly probably wouldn't even try.
Does he then follow
So
truly was this prophesized with following Brett Favre's footsteps with organizations?
oh
Holy
man,
smoke.
wow, that would be so freaking wild. That talk about simulation theory. My goodness,
Don't get
because
me
all the
started.
steps so far have been all the steps with Rodgers and Favre now at the end here have gotten very eerily similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
Didn't they
eerily
have like the
similar.
same, like a unique, like a niche stat line in like incompletions and interceptions and like game scenarios where I think maybe you tweeted it out of like, here is Brett Favre's like last season, and then here is Aaron Rodgers' stats this season. And it's just like eerily similar.
There were some very, very close comparisons, even including the game against the Eagles. So when Aaron Rodgers got hurt against the Eagles and Jordan Love came in and looked spectacular, and they didn't win, the similarities in that game to the game where Favre was playing against the Cowboys and got hurt in 2007 and Aaron Rodgers came back in, wild. Same weeks, same season, both against the number one seed in the NFC at the time, I believe. Both almost came back to win, but did not. And the stats were pretty wild, too, as far as similarities. So, yeah, there's a lot of weird things happening there. If he actually got traded to the Jets, that would blow my mind. There's not a lot of things these days that surprise me. Anybody who spends any time on Twitter, you're probably out of surprise anymore. But that would blow me away. That would absolutely blow me away.
Talking about the simulation and the matrix, right? So just the pieces that had to fall into place for this to even be a feasible scenario is Nathaniel Hackett going to Denver under some sort of assumption that they had a shot at Aaron Rodgers in the 2022 offseason. He is actually a favorite for the offensive coordinator position in New York. That could be a reunion where he decides to go to the New York Jets with that same 2022 storyline of. Am I blowing your mind here? Blowing your mind here, Miles?
That would be so freaking crazy if that happened. And the fact that there are steps happening that are getting it closer to reality is, that's
because
wild.
If you are in the war room in Green Bay, I mean, you have to start thinking of life without Aaron Rodgers, right? Like you said.
They already started thinking of that.
Let's be real. So you at that point, you're thinking, okay, like you said, I need the maximum return. I need the optimal deal to move on. Right. And so who's the dark horse outside of the New York Jets that can put a package together with some of this carousel that we're talking about here?
So I've got a dark horse and then I've got a darker horse. If that's a thing. So the first dark horse, and I don't even know if this counts as a dark horse, but yeah, I don't know if my first one even counts as a dark horse because it has been kind of tossed around a little bit, but it's certainly not top of the conversation right now, at least, is Tennessee. I think Vrabel really likes Rodgers and Rodgers really likes Vrabel. I think they've got a decent situation there. I think Rodgers would love handing off to Derrick Henry. He knows they've got a good defense and that a good defense is what it takes to win. And that's something that he hasn't really outwardly said as much, but he's definitely over the course of history nodded at the idea that he realizes he needs a good defense to win. So yeah, I think Tennessee is actually that's who I would bet on as the favorite. I think he likes Tennessee. Last offseason there was like, he bought property in Tennessee. And it's no secret that Ryan Tannehill's nothing special. I mean, yes, they invested the draft pick in Malik Willis.
Yep.
Willis last year.
University.
Yeah. So, you've got a guy there that, unless you're sold that he's ready to step in and be your starter, and it doesn't look like they are, that would really make a lot of sense to put in, a 4-time MVP in front of him and show him the ropes a little bit for a year or two. So I definitely could see a fit in Tennessee. The Colts are kind of a 1B there, 1A, 1B.
The darker horse, no pun intended, with the Colts.
No. The darker horse, and this is without knowing the team's resources, without understanding what resources these teams have and what they could use to get them. But the darker horse would be New England.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man.
I could see Rodgers wanting to play for Bill and Bill wanting Rodgers. And I would bet they've got the resources to make that happen. So that's one that I would say, let's not let's not let them sit out on
Yeah.
this one, because I think that would be very, very Bill-esque
Yeah.
to go get somebody like that after the struggles he's had at quarterback.
Yeah. Well,
So
if
that's
you
strap them in.
strap in, and if you ask anybody in the Boston area, I mean, they are big Zappy fans. So
Bailey's happy.
yeah. So I mean,
Hey, me too, man.
I think with first of all, I mean, you are a content machine. Darker Horse. We just need to keep that as an evergreen segment, right? Just who's the darker horse here, and take it one step further than every other podcast in the ether. But my reaction, because I feel like this is now a reaction podcast, because that's a lot for me to process. But both of them, immediately my mind goes to get them out of the division. Right, so get them out of the conference at that point. If you're going to either Tennessee or New England, I mean, you're an NFC East or NFC South. I'm sorry, AFC East, AFC South problem at that point. So I could care less if he goes to either of those teams. I think the unique wrinkle with the darker horse is at that point it's a little bit of a middle finger from Bill Belichick to the Brady camp and Tom Brady. It's just another wrinkle is what number does he wear, right? In New England. And then also there is, I don't think either of them have the onions to do so, because at that point we're talking about legacies being at stake. If Rodgers, the team is clicking and Rodgers can't perform, then Bill at that point can say, see, I am the mastermind here behind a successful team. And if it doesn't play out that way, then I think they're both very exposed to, if not the coaching doesn't go well, or Aaron Rodgers doesn't perform, I think it hurts their legacy. Right? Because I mean, if you match up those two names, you would in a different time guarantee a Super Bowl, right? Like you would guarantee a Super Bowl. So if they don't come out and deliver that, I mean, as the kids say, put fork in it, right? For both of them, put a fork in that legacy. Because so far, I feel like Bill Belichick's gotten a pass with Mac Jones. While Brady was retiring in Tampa, and man, you really threw a curveball at me tonight, Miles.
Well, it depends on how sold they are on Mac Jones. If they're not sold on Mac Jones, I could totally see them getting rid of him. Bill's never been slow to move players. He doesn't seem to be very emotional about his GM duties.
Love it.
He's moved really good players at they're in their prime, and we're all looking at it like, why did he do that? Like, what was it, Chandler Jones that he sent to Arizona?
Yeah.
There's been several moves that he's made where it's like, dang man, like he just got rid of that guy, huh?
Yeah.
I could see him.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I could see him moving on very quickly from Mac Jones. I think he knows at this point whether or not Mac Jones can grow into what he needs him to. Bailey Zappi is a fascinating one because he was just a rookie this year. And while he looked good, you would still probably want I could see Bill wanting to put a veteran in front of him for a couple of years. The thing, here's I guess, if I have to serve a counterpoint for myself, the thing that I would say that would keep that from happening is the Patriot way.
Yeah.
Like, what Bill says goes, man. And if Rodgers wants to go in there and, use his hand signals and have his freedom at the line, but, with, have 3-4 plays and up his sleeve that he can audible to, does that jive with the Patriot way? Because, I don't know, man. So that would be the one thing.
Throw egos in there, and can 12's ego handle Bill pulling him in a game for something like that?
Yeah, see, I don't know. I don't know. The egos, I think, is what might keep that from happening.
I think Tennessee is
certainly intriguing to think about.
Option. I will say this: I know one of the biggest Patriots fan in the world. So shout out to Brett. I will check in with him and tell you if they have any sort of resources to pull off the Aaron Rodgers trade, and even get his perspective
See what he
on
thinks.
the combination of Aaron Rodgers and the possibility of him being in a Patriots jersey. So this is the People's Podcast. We venture into lots of different scenarios and situations. So make sure you tune in throughout the off season. We'll make sure to revisit some of these exciting storylines.
Right on, man. And I mean, there's storylines for days. We've got more we
Scratch
could
the
get
surface.
into. We're gonna table some of those for next week. Yeah, and but we got playoff football ahead of us here. I mean, do we need to be making some Super Bowl predictions here before we sign off?
Well, here's my prediction.
Like, should we?
There's what, 3/4 of the divisional round is the NFC East. So they have 3 horses in the race for the Super Bowl. With that entire division minus the Commanders. Who are we? The Commanders are not in the race, but the Cowboys, the Giants, who got that beautiful victory in Minnesota, and
Hell yeah,
and the Eagles, who obviously had the bye. So who wins the Super Bowl? My prediction is I think as I was watching the games this weekend, is realizing Joe Burrow. I mean, he's a winner, and just a quiet, consistent in the playoffs winner. And with Kansas City, obviously, and the Bills still in the mix, it's just one of those where, man, that truly the cream rises, Miles. If I have to give you a prediction on who wins the Super Bowl, man, maybe tune in next episode. I'll give you a cliffhanger. Tune in next episode, and I'll make my Super Bowl prediction.
I'll tell you what, I'm riding the Giants bandwagon all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yes.
They beat down those purple nerds, and I am forever grateful. Well, not forever grateful. I'm grateful for the next few weeks. So, yeah, go Big Blue. Go win you another Super Bowl. I'm all on it. I don't want to see the Cowboys win another Super Bowl. Sorry, Austin. Love you, brother.
Just the hater gene.
As far as the AFC goes, yeah, absolutely.
Just the hater gene.
If I can't love on my team, I'm just going to hate on whoever I need to. Yeah. No, but I'm loving on the Giants here. Absolutely loving on the Giants. Coach Daboll's got them. We're and as far as the AFC goes, I've got no dog in the fight. I agree. Joe Burrow is a dog, man. But you've got a tough side of the NFL as far as that conference goes. I mean, every team that's left here, the Jags, Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills, I could make a case for all of them. As far as Trevor Lawrence and the good mentality goes, like that guy, he's going to be tough to beat, man. He's going to be tough to beat. But if there's somebody who can beat him, it's going to be Mahomes and Arrowhead. So we'll see. But definitely looking forward to that matchup between the Bills and the Bengals. Should be a classic. Yeah. And speaking of classics, man, we're getting a taste. We're going back to the 90s here with the Cowboys and the Niners button heads in the playoffs. We don't get this very often, but this used to be for those who didn't grow up in the 90s, maybe you grew up a decade later and Brady and Manning was your iconic rivalry. This was the iconic rivalry of the 90s. The Cowboys and the Niners, Jerry Rice against Deion Sanders, Steve Young, Troy Aikman. I mean, just the list of iconic players that were part of that. Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin. I mean, I'm going to get in trouble for not naming all of the 90s Cowboys at this point. But, going back to it, the Niners had a lot of legendary players as well in those matchups. This isn't a rivals podcast, so we would be remiss if we did not shout out a rivalry clash happening this weekend.
Golly,
Yeah, I mean,
there's
just
so
so much
much.
history between the Cowboys and the Niners. Going back to Montana too, and just
You're getting me
so much.
excited,
So,
Miles.
dude, this is a weekend of football to be
Some
excited
good
about, even
ball.
without your teams involved. Oh man, if you just love football, this is the time. And actually, I'll say this is a brand of football that I have grown to enjoy, not more than being a Packers fan, but almost as much as watching the Packers is getting to watch good football without having to worry about the Packers
Yeah,
losing.
yeah.
Like that's what I really love, you
Yeah,
know?
because we all know, last year, not to salt any old wounds, Miles, but the Niners were the reason, that Aaron Rodgers was sent packing.
I deserve it.
And let's not
I can
forget
wear it.
Robbie
I can
Gold.
wear
But I
it.
will say this is, Miles, I've exercised some Cody Parkey demons on this podcast. Boy, if I'm a Cowboys fan, I know we have a bit of of some roots with Cowboy fans. I mean, you can't feel great
My God.
about the kicking game right now. And if there's anything, Miles, with the postseason is a lot of games come down to a kick, right? To a field goal try.
You need that kicker.
And boy, I tell you what, when you talk about nightmare scenarios for a postseason, it's your kicker getting the yips in an actual game, because only he and whatever faith he has get him through this week, knowing that he has that weight and pressure to potentially be in a game-winning scenario, um, and having to go and kick a field goal. When you miss 4 extra points in a game, you can't feel very confident about that. So I say that not doom and gloom. I mean, this is a receipt machine, this podcast, but I just want to say, if you're a fan, you can't feel great about that, especially with the way some of these playoff games tend to play out. And that's very tough football, very close football back and forth, and high stake field goal tries along the way. So something to keep an eye out. But yeah, I'll take Robbie Gold over over Brett. What's his name? Who's the Cowboys kid? Maher.
Maher.
Yeah.
Maher.
Sheesh.
Poor
Poor
guy.
guy.
And he's actually been pretty solid. I guess I haven't looked at his stats. I thought he was pretty good. But yeah, man, 4 extra points. I mean, I'll listen, I think you give me 4 cracks at it, I'm making one
Yeah,
of
well,
them.
I think
I'm just gonna
I
say
think you could pick up. Do you pick up the phone if you're if you're the Cowboys, and call up Cody Parkey and maybe give him a shot at redemption? Because I mean, I don't see how you could roll I don't see how you could roll Brett Mayer out back there.
they did sign
Did
another
they?
kicker. It wasn't Parkey. I don't know who it was. It was a guy I'd never heard of, but they did sign in another kicker. We'll see if Maher makes the trip here and gets to play in that game and redeem himself. But man, and hey, I sympathize for the guy.
Yeah,
What an awful
yeah,
feeling. Nobody feels worse than
yeah,
him, and you got to like that's like a basketball player that all of a sudden can't make free throws. You're just like, dang man, like I got to make one of these
yeah.
things. So hopefully, Cowboys fans, I know you guys are all holding your breath. I really hope that doesn't come back to kick you in the nuts. I sincerely do. I hope if you lose this game, it's not because of Brett Maher, because that would be,
Yeah,
good Lord, that would be
yeah.
terrible. I
Well,
don't wish that on my enemies.
well, I mean, there's gonna be receipts. So hopefully,
Receipts.
I'm sure if you're a Cowboys fans, you want us to eat our words. I'm just saying. All I'm saying is just keep an eye out. Keep an eye on that kicker, that kicking game. It tends to be and this is coming from a Bears fan. It tends to be sketchy at times in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's a couple.
We don't want to see any
No
double
double
doinks.
doinks, no quadruple doinks. I mean, Brett Maher, I think, would be making progress if he gets near a goalpost this weekend. But enough. We're starting to just pile it on. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, we're just
I
piling them
think
on.
Brett Maher could use a couple life remedies. So why don't you hook him up, man? Why don't you tell him what he can do?
Man, we ought to send him some soft gels. Just like, dude, chill.
Focus.
Chill. Here's some
Focus.
natural remedies. Get it leveled out. Zone in. For those of you who are not familiar with our soft gels, that is the cure to the yips. Not officially. The FDA might get mad at me if I say that. That might be making a claim. Is the yips an official diagnosis?
I don't want the diagnosis.
I need to be careful. If you got the yips, or better yet, this happened to me this week. If you made a mistake at work and it's one of those, you've all been there, you know it. You made that mistake. Others probably already forgot about it. It's probably they're not thinking about this, but you are. It's in here. You have locked it in and you're playing it on repeat and you're beating yourself up for it. And you're like, why'd I do that? And you just can't knock yourself out of it. You need a soft gel. You need a natural remedy from the hemp plant that it's natural. It delivers you a feeling of focus, of general contentness, and feeling better today, right now. So, hey, Brett Maher, man, send me your P.O. box. I know you're not going to show me where you live. I'll send you some soft gels. I'll send them up to Jerry World if I've got to. We'll get you hooked up, dude. We need you to be focused and iced down for this game. So, yeah, y'all check them out. If you got the yips, if you're frustrated, you just need something to help you chill out in the middle of the afternoon when business is and work is getting after you. Get into the soft gels. Get back into that mentality that you need to be in to work well, to feel right, to be in the zone. And we're gonna deliver every single time. We got them for you. So check us out, lifeleafremedies.com, to feel better today, y'all. And the only natural remedy we're asking for in return, sir.
Well, I mean, if you're an OG and you enjoy our show, please don't forget to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate. Remember, talk about at Bum Theory, BUMTHEARY. Just a brilliant graphic designer.
On the screen.
And I want to sign off, Miles, with a postseason bear down.
Hey. Win or lose, it's always go, Pack, go. I know that doesn't rhyme like the other one, but go, Pack, go.
Right.